invitation by your party. And respected ladies and gentlemen, I want to add to some speeches I have heard here by Mr. Pierre Rias, also now by his colleague and Mr. Shaukat Kashmiri. I'm planning since months a conference of all the oppressed nations of Pakistan and Uyghurs to come together who are concerned with CPEC. If we have one issue, if we have one theme like CPEC, CPEC is part of the OBOR, then we have more success to get the doors of governments and UN and other institutions open, because OBOR also is a concern for Europe in the future. And if we can unify in this conference, we can raise one voice, we can make resolutions, we can also bring all together our problems into an organization or something like that, and then we can raise a very powerful voice against Beijing, against Islamabad, and international community, because most of the governments are very, very busy with the main problems in the world. They have no time and no interest to give their ear to marginalized problems, and for Europeans and Americans, Pakistan, India, this is very far away in their mind, and they do not know much about. So it will be also our task to inform international media, but we must have strong access, strong power to do that, because all our attempts before, they failed. And this is why I'm planning this conference next year and inviting all of you to come together to make resolutions, to bring in your interests and what you are planning, to raise one voice in that, and so we can contact them, the real powerful nations. Yes, yes, yes.
Very important.
Yes, and thank you. I want to quote a little speech about the theme here, independence of the oppressed nations, while national struggle is so important. Through the eyes and minds of Europeans, especially considering our terrible German past, you might think nationalism is a problem. But it was a perverted version of nationalism, used by fascists to oppress both the German and Jewish peoples to wreak war on the world. The realization of the horrors inflicted by this immoral fascist regime gave rise to the conception after the Second World War for a Germany united with the other European countries for their mutual benefit. To construct a European market followed by the political European Union to say never again will we succumb to nationalist right-wing parties or politics. Germany learned its lesson. I ask, can the European Union be a model for the post-colonial nations? The lands forming Pakistan, colonized by the British, have been forced into a jihadist system implemented only through their common adherence to Islam. Today we are facing the aftermath of colonialism and the effects that the suppression of nations entails as part of the post-colonial structures, now automatically a side of the coin called globalization. The globalization which promises prosperity for all who work closely together, making national differences redundant for the understanding of all and for the economic benefit and stability of all. It appears that the prerequisite for positive developments, creating peace and incorporating human rights, it is to be one of the so-called first world nations, already independently progressive and ruled by functional democracy in secular and separate governments. These are not the starting conditions found in post-colonial or formerly independent nations which are now under Pakistan rule. The dominance of the military and its intelligence service, ISI, over the Pakistan executive system allows no opportunity for separate powers to work together, an essential condition for democratic societies and for progress. If we observe the situation of the deprived and marginalized and suppressed nation that make up Pakistan, an artificial state created by the British to divide and rule after independence in India, we cannot conclude that the promises of a global world can be applicable to the poor nations of Pakistan. Looking at particular examples more closely defined, Balochistan, an independent state before it was illegally occupied by Pakistan. Pashtun, traditionally Afghani, which was divided by the imposition of the Durand Line, never intended to be a national border, and now torn apart by Pakistan. And Sindh, a separate province in 1936 and a separate nation for millennia, divided between Muslim Pakistan and Hindu India. The arrogated and oppressed nations of Pakistan are unable to access prosperity or human and economic development due to their status under an artificially devised system. They were victims from the beginning. They will never have a chance to move forward whilst Pakistan persists in a jihad agenda, a spurious religio-political stance, fueled by and fueling Wahhabism, a former marginalized sect of Sunni Islam, an instrument of Saudi Arabia enabling Pakistan to maintain control over different nations with different cultures, histories, customs, and languages. Wahhabism aims for overall power in Muslim countries, a new caliphate without borders. It is what I would call a dark attempt of a false globalization, not for the sake and rights of the people it fails to shelter, but for the complete power of economic tycoons like Saudi Arabia. As you can see, the significance and resolution of the national question is completely different in the context of Sindhis, Pashtuns and Baloch, without the attributes of the pervaded nationalism Europe experienced in the 20th century. The reality on the ground of the state of Pakistan counteracts many of the conventions of the United Nations, although Pakistan has nominally signed up to them. Such a huge economic project like the CPEC favors only certain sections of Pakistan. There will be no prosperous future for the local people of the different nations along its route. The supranational structure of Pakistan allows only the ruling Punjabis to benefit, and China, which will become a new colonial and imperialistic superpower over the whole of South Asia through their overwhelming economic power, which translates to political power in our modern world. Pakistan, a supranational structure that supports terrorism, authorizes the military oppression of the peoples under its control and aims to destabilize Afghanistan to establish its own agenda and power by means of dubious religious claims, will not lead to the esteemed values of global peace. The implications of religion in political power, the denial of secular and democratic thought in constitutions, and especially the lack of separation between religion and state, have proved incapable of creating the desired end of human unity in globalization, global peace, justice, and economic development. It is obvious to many that a supranational structure like Pakistan cannot fulfill its promises of civilized standards for global peace and human development. And prosperous economies, education, and the rights of the people of these subjugated nations cannot be guaranteed. On the contrary, in fact, the EU countries choose to come together for the benefit of all the participating countries. They were not forced or coerced, unlike the disparate nations of Pakistan. The question of giving independence to nations to save and secure human rights and economic developments becomes imperative in the struggle for global peace. The EU supranational structure is based on secular and democratic values with national constitutions formulated of the separation of religion and state, enabling it to develop united and peaceful societies. Independence for the nations currently controlled by Pakistan can actively contribute to these goals. Nationalist thinking in these countries is a tool to save their national identities in cultural terms, customs, language, and rights, to achieve the condition of becoming a part of globalization, bringing real unity, global peace, and human and economic development to their countries. They may even form their own Asian Union after independence. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your esteemed attention.